Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
Start controlling finances. Her mindset was to law enforcement, I took a vow to him. But you're going to hear evidence in a text message between her and another guy that would shrink the world and rule out. A guy that's a neighbor that met her when she would walk, because she would walk all the time. She's tough. In a text message, when she was upset with Gary, we believe, she's talking about, she said, my response to his fit he threw was, I hope you die alone in a gruesome death. She's asked by law enforcement, she didn't say anything about hoping he died or anything like that. Terry responds and says, there you go, he's going to push you over the edge. I know, and that scares me. Told him 5 weeks ago where could not even see or hear him, it would be in his best interest. You're going to see some text messages and things in this. She portrays this as pivots. But an ever constant in their marriage, tension, an ever constant tension is money. She did not like that Gary would use his money the way he did. It's referred to sometimes by people as a Ferris wheel because there was drama. There was definitely drama. Chris had his issues. Melody didn't really like Chris. Chris would use checking account numbers and credit card numbers and things like that. And he had paid for, coming up to this point, he had paid for a beach vacation. I think we're in a condo or something like that. Melody was furious. She did not like that Gary was just going to go with him. And Gary basically would, he'd say stuff, but he'd write the check or he'd say, okay. He wouldn't really do anything. It's his kids, his sons. He could afford it. She'd say things like, this is the last straw. I've had it, I'm taking measures. It shows that her mindset is this money, this money, this money. And that leads to this. Bullet in his ribs. They go in the house and look at the house. These are steps going down to the basement. There's blood. There's going to be evidence of blood and cleanup in the kitchen. Her domain. Down the steps. When you get off those steps, if you take off those steps, you can see it. Scott saw some blood on the floor down there. Law enforcement saw it. They go back and spray Blue Star. This chemical stuff that'll light up, and you'll see it. You see those 4, 3, 2, 1 placards there? It's a trail of blood. I've circled this so you can see. Down there is a sofa. There's an ottoman, I believe is the term. And as you get closer, law enforcement found another bullet. We do not know how many times Gary was shot. We know he was shot and killed. We know there are at least 2. The blood trail from the kitchen up there, we believe the evidence is they had an argument. She shot him. He goes downstairs trying to get away. She shoots him again. Whether he was able on his own to get out those doors or she got him out herself. Top and bottom. No home invasion. No robbery. Nothing. And that brings us to what we call means, motive, and opportunity. How do you get away with a murder if there's no confession? How do you get away with a murder if there's no video of it? How do you get away with a murder if you try to burn and destroy all the evidence? You don't. When you use your common sense and all the evidence to put it together to shrink the world, and the only reasonable answer is she did it. For example, if they say Scott did it, Scott's not going to shoot his dad when he's paying all the bills. It's a gravy train. That's just not going to happen. Let's first talk about opportunity. The reason why you shrunk the world down, and you will see at the times in this case, when he was killed and when his body was moved, when things are going on, the only person that's going to be at that house, the only person is her. No one else. Just her. Sure, people were coming and going, but not when things were going on. The other thing you consider is sometimes in the case with strong evidence is deception, mendacity. When you see that, she's cloaked in lies. And you'll see it through the trial. The evidence will show that. Here's some things she says about fires. The context, the common sense, the circumstantial evidence. Gary liked to set things on fire. He liked to burn stuff. I think about 2008, they had another house, Alpharetta, that they moved from to the farm. He set, I think, the backwoods on fire or something at night. Caught on fire. She hated that with understandable concern. That's dangerous. People are scared of fires. I get it. She's concerned about that. And then in the same house before this murder in 2016, I believe, he set the house on fire from the basement up, smoking cigarettes in the trash can, left them there, and they caught the house on fire. She went after him. She is strong-willed. She has a backbone. She's tough-minded. And she would tell him how she felt. She told investigators things like this. I try to put together some of the things you'll hear. She had gotten so scared of fire after that. She had been just scared of the fire. She was scared to death. She figured Gary would burn her house down. They just didn't leave him here much alone because he would, I think she said, break a steel trap or something like that. She told Gary, don't leave the fire. She told Gary, please don't leave the fire. She told Gary, we discussed in dinner, they cannot go off and leave that fire. She told Gary, you got to watch the fire. She said there's no reason with him. He's a lawyer. He was going to burn it or die trying. Slip of tongue, but that's what she said. That was the opportunity. It's going to be her. Means. Means is how could you have done it? Because the question you're going to have in your mind that's going to boil down to this case is how did that little lady get that big man on the burn pile? She's a cowgirl, farm girl. Her daddy owned a hardware store growing up. She's been around it. She had ropes, leads, straps, tow lines. Did I mention they had a tractor? Means. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. You just committed murder, you'll be motivated if you have the means. Did I also say tell you they had an RTV? She knew I was driving a boat. Wednesday morning, Scott leaves to go play golf about 7 o'clock that morning. She doesn't leave, go to the lake till around 12 something. No one's at the house. She comes back that night and tells the kids they go to bed early. Motive. In my business, there's nothing new under the sun. You don't have to be smart to be an attorney. You have to have common sense. When it comes to motive, the question you're going to have is, one is, how does she get him out there? That's answered. Evan's going to answer that. Why did she do this? Why would a wife, even for a husband she doesn't like, he has money. Well, she didn't inherit, intestate succession. She gets stuff under Georgia law. Even if he died of an accident, she'd probably get more money. Motive. Let me introduce you to a person called Rusty. Law enforcement trying to figure out what's going on. They're at the house, they get consent, things like that. They search her purse and they find, the things you think you find in a purse, but they find this bank card, credit card, debit card, whatever it is, this financial card. And they find the name Roy Barton on it. And so they're asking, hey, who's Roy Barton? Well, she says, my cousin, Martha Jane, was married to Roy Barton years ago. In fact, in 2014, that's when this kind of starts off. But she doesn't mention Rusty. She's playing it off as Roy Barton Sr. And he's died. And I just had that, forgot it was there, something along those lines. The Rusty Barton, though, the Rusty Barton, is not senior, it's junior. And he's a character. He's reluctant. He's talking about the evidence going to show he's going to change. You're going to be introduced to Rusty Barton, who's from Tennessee, and we're bringing him in. I do not know what he will say on that stand. I know what he said in the past, and he's flip-flop. That's what evidence is going to show. But you're going to be able to use the law, which is called prior inconsistent statements. You're going to be able to judge when he said this, and when he says this, and when he says this, what do you believe? A little background on Rusty. He knew them since teenagers. I think he knew her when she was 15. Martha Jane, which is her second cousin, but more like a mother figure. She loves Martha Jane. Martha Jane's a good woman, a godly woman. Martha Jane loves the defendant. They were married to Rusty's father. So Martha Jane, Roy Sr. were married. Rusty and the defendant became romantic in about 2014. She was up there helping her, Martha Jane. I think she had open heart surgery. In fact, Rusty actually took Martha Jane to Emily's wedding. Up close and personal. The affair was going on for about 4 years, 2014, 2018. Inactive. Gary knew about it. There's an email he received that put him on notice about from Rusty's girlfriend. You're going to hear him ask questions about Rusty talking to her, telling her, don't do that. Rusty did internet searches about the wedding rings when law enforcement was talking to him. They would rendezvous in Dalton, which is about halfway from Tullahoma, Tennessee, and Alpharetta. Almost halfway exactly. Exit 333. They meet up there. In the beginning, it was monthly, several weeks ago, and then it became weekly. She would just disappear. Family knew what was going on. They had suspicions, but they didn't realize who Rusty was until this broke. They kind of have a 6-month plan. Rusty believed, based on what the defendant was telling him, according to Rusty, that Gary had some esophagus cancer or something, bleeding, something going on, so he was sick and he was going to die. And they kind of had this plan after Gary passed away. Naturally, they would, for 6 months, lay low, and then they would come back and get together. They were in love. They talk like junior high kids in love for the first time, all the time. They had a regular pattern. Law enforcement interviewed Rusty on certain occasions. There's these days where Rusty was interviewed and basically goes from, I don't know anything, and then they press it. We told you in a trial like this, it can be a contact sport. The attorneys can get after it. We can get after it. I can get after it. And they get after it with Rusty. I'll be professional. But they did the good cop, bad cop with Rusty because he didn't want to give up on Melody. And you're going to hear how they talk to him about this is a death penalty case. You can be arrested for this. You can be, what side do you want to be on in the courtroom? All techniques law enforcement use to have someone talk. And he talks to them. And they use him in the sense of they would get information from him, and then he was willing to cooperate and record some calls and some things like that. But look at this pattern here. He talked for some time. And in June of 2019, he recants something he told law enforcement in July of 2018. And y'all familiar with the first 48 hours? In law enforcement, in this business, you get to someone as quickly as they can because if there's time, they will change. Feelings change. In the beginning, he says one thing, and then he gives up more and more. It's like pulling teeth. You finally get it out. But he recants. And this is what he recants. The evidence in the case is going to show that when you shrink the world to the only person that had the motive was her, the only person that was home when this could have occurred, Tuesday evening, going in from Tuesday the 3rd to Wednesday the 4th, about 2 o'clock in the morning, law enforcement talks to Rusty and says, all right, what did she say? And he describes it as the last minute, last conversation. This is what he tells law enforcement. She said, Gary's in the burn pile. No. She said, he is in the burn pile. And I said, what? And she said, he is in the burn pile. I said, do not say another word and do not tell me anything. I do not need to know that. This is what, before the murder's known, anything like that, he's on the phone. The record's going to show that he had 3 or 4 main phone calls during this time. It's going to show that his pattern when he would talk to her was abnormal for this time. There's a phone call. He says, I talked to her. And this is what she said. He's in the burn pile. This would have been July 4th. Now he comes back a year later and recants. Well, his presence and companionship is with the defendant. Law enforcement goes, gets arrest warrants, goes up to Tullahoma, Tennessee to arrest her, and guess who she's with? Russell. After she's arrested, she's in jail before she bonds out. There's actually jail calls. And you're going to hear some of those. And we told you there's going to be calls and things like that. And you're going to have to be patient with us. It's going to be a lot of information. It's just a piece of this puzzle. But at the end of the day, it's going to show the defendant. So it's past, it's being arrested. He recants to law enforcement. No, I didn't say, she didn't say that. I was pressured. I was under duress. I was taking sleeping pills. I was under alcohol. And then she's talking to him on a phone call. And this is just a part. Now, you're going to hear the whole thing later on. But this is what we call consciousness of guilt. It was going to show that she says this, and this is not what an innocent person would say to her lover.
You all right?
No. Well, like a long time ago, I just stopped talking.
Right.
I haven't done anything.
I know that, darling.
Just because others, what you keep talking about, you're going to single-handedly hang me.
Speak the truth. This is what charges. Malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing death of another, and making false statements. We are here because Gary cannot be here. And the only reason we're here is by her hand. Malice murder is the unlawful killing of somebody with malice aforethought. It doesn't mean someone's wicked in that sense, or malice in the sense that is hatred or things like that. It is the unlawful intent to kill. And the judge is going to charge you on that. One shot. Could be felony murder if they're fighting and she just reacts. 2 shots and burning. It's depraved. Felony murder, the evidence is going to show that even if she didn't intend to, with malice, to kill him, that intent to kill, that she had that gun in it, just went off. Not the case because she shot him twice. That's still felony murder. It's not the intent to kill, it's the intent to do the underlying felony, which is aggravated assault. Pointing the gun at someone and shooting them, and they die. Even if you didn't mean for them to die, it's still felony murder. There's no malice involved. There's no intent to kill. Aggravated assault is just the shooting. Concealing death of another. The law is designed to prevent certain conduct, and the case that you have before you shows what it's designed to prevent. Not only was Gary Farris murdered, and he has friends and family that watch this, that are here, but they were deprived of him. Because she burned him up. False statements because she lied to law enforcement about Russell. Y'all forget about all this out here. My job, representing the district attorney, is to present this case to you without fear, favor, or affection. Your job under your oath is to speak the truth. I talked to you about veritas. You see the word verdict. It's truth, speak. It's the word veritas with dit in Latin, to speak. When you're done with this case, take all the time you need. Forgive me when I bumble through things, when I get sideways, when I'm doing my job. But remember, I am representing a voice that has been snuffed out and taken away. And Megan Frankis and I are going to present you with the evidence. And there's two sides to the truth. That is, where you see the deceit and the lies in this case, that points to who did it. When you see the opportunity, the means, and the motive, money, sex, new life, the truth, as sad as it is, as hard as it is that the defendant murdered and desecrated her own husband.
That's right.
Would this be a good time for a break, or?
I'm gonna let y'all go and then we'll break after that. Reset. Anybody need a break? All right. I got one taker. All right. We'll go ahead and take a break. It'll be, if one of you are going to, then all the dominoes will fall. So it'll be 10 minutes. So we'll go ahead and take a break. That's fine. All right. They started it a little earlier. All right. We'll take 10. Shane's coffee that he made in my French press. And I'm gonna be flying for the rest of that. All right, you ready to get started? Or continue? You ready? All right, go ahead and bring them in. I went ahead and sent them down to get coffee and told our smoker she'd go take a break. So. All right, Mr. Ray, you ready to proceed? Ready. All right, go ahead.
Mr. Weaver, as y'all recall, he did voir dire, so I didn't get to talk to you too much. We kind of broke it up. He got stuck with that task in lieu of me doing opening statements. So my name is Michael Ray. Along with John Luke Weaver, we're representing Mr. Farris. Thank y'all for your service. I know that a 3 or 4, excuse me, a three or 4 week long trial is not how you anticipated spending your beginning of fall. So we do appreciate that. And we have worked quite diligently. I've had this case for, 6 years now of trying to whittle it down to what is the most important pieces of evidence to show to you and to present to you so that you can make a decision in this case. So I don't think we're going to go beyond 4 weeks. It could get done as early as 3, but it might go into 4. But we're definitely going to try to get it moving as quickly as possible. For your jury service, Abraham Lincoln said that one of the greatest services of a citizenship is jury duty. And I think that's very true. It's the equivalent, in my opinion, of voting, because without you, 16 people we have, or if it was in state court, the 6 people we would have, without you, we couldn't do this. We couldn't do our job. Justice couldn't be done. Justice couldn't be done for Melody without you. So thank you for serving. When you act as a juror, or when you're sitting as a juror, in this particular case, and in all cases, you are essentially the conscience of the community. Because you're going to hear this evidence, then you're going to apply it to the law that the judge is going to give you, and you're going to render a decision. Because if you recall, when Judge Cannon was going over the oath with you that he read to you last thing, I know you've taken a lot of oaths. You took one downstairs when there was 120 of you, and then you took another one when you came in your jury bill, and then you came in with the 16 of you and you took another oath. But in that oath that you took an oath to give a truth verdict according to the evidence. And that's what we're asking you to do. And you heard the judge say that it's your duty to render a truth verdict based on the evidence. And that's exactly what we'll be asking you to do. Now, Mr. Fogus, he did a good job in his opening statement. So some of the things are duplicated because obviously when he came in, he didn't know what I was going to say. And when I came in, I didn't know what he was going to say. But I don't want to sit there and regurgitate the same things. But we got to talk about a few things. That one being the indictment. Mr. Bucket did a great job going through explaining it. So just kind of to recap what Ms. Farris is charged with. One, malice murder. That is essentially, to keep it simple, and we'll go over it much deeper at the end when the judge actually gives you the charge, and then we get to argue. What malice murder is, somebody is alive, I don't want them alive, and they're dead. That's malice murder. Felony murder, I commit a felony act, and it causes that person's death. Like trying to rob somebody, accidentally shoot them, felony murder. That's what it is. In this case, the felony is the aggravated assault. The state alleges that Ms. Farris shot her husband, Gary Farris. And that was an aggravated assault. And as a result of that assault, he died. So that's how felony, murder, and aggravated assault are linked together. Concealing the death of another is pretty obvious. There's a little more depth to it when you actually look at the actual elements of the offense, but you can imagine what that is. Somebody has passed away and you have concealed it. Making false statements, that's lying to the police. We always say defense attorneys can lie to you, but you cannot lie to police. It's actually a crime. So, this case, and you've heard a little bit of it from Mr. Fogus, but you've probably seen on your crime show, because I know from Bordier, a lot of you watch the podcast, the crime shows, the true crime and all that. And you always see defense attorneys talking a lot of time about there's been a rush to judgment in this case. You know, rush to prosecute the first person that you can get your hands on. But that wasn't this case. Melody was under investigation in this case for over almost a year, between the 911 call that you're going to hear shortly and her arrest on June 18th of 2019. So there wasn't a rush to judgment, but what we had in this case was different. It was called confirmation bias. And we'll talk more about this in close, but what a confirmation bias is you got a belief and you've got facts. And that belief and those facts merge together. And that's what you believe. Even though you have all of these other facts over here, you just ignore those facts because that's not in your belief. And that's not in the facts that you want to look at. And that is a confirmation bias. You're going to see from the evidence in this case, from day one, the investigation by Detective Hayes and all the other officers in Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, even the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the GBI, everything that was done in this case was tailored specifically to attempt to convict Melody of the death of Gary Farris. One big thing you're going to hear, and you're going to hear it a lot, is Scott Farris. You are going to hear the 911 call here shortly. That's the first thing we're going to do. I'm going to play you the 911 call. 13 minutes after law enforcement arrives, Scott Farris is already blaming his mother. He knows nothing. They're not even sure if there is a body on the burn pile. They're not even sure it's Gary. He's already planting the seeds of blaming his mother. 13 minutes. And law enforcement took that into their beliefs. And then they focused their evidence on that. And that is confirmation bias. Now, you heard Mr. Fogus talk about the Ferris wheel, and I talk about it too. That this was a turbulent family. The best is, and we'll go through, I have a family tree to go over with you that kind of lays everybody out. But one of them, his name's Chad Bruce. He is now married to Amanda. And Chad Bruce, when he was interviewed, he said, I always called it the Ferris wheel. It's like a soap opera. Something is always going on with Chris, Scott, and Emily. And it's true. All the time. All the time. And I'll talk a little bit more about it. But you're going to see text messages. Gary mad that they're blowing money. Chris can't survive on his own, always needing money. Scott, a grown man, can't survive on his own, always needing money. Coming to get mama's credit card so he can go get some money out. Emily with her turmoil with her new husband and all that. In fact, you're also going to hear that Gary and Melody had to buy Emily and her husband the house up in Tennessee where they live. There was a lot of turmoil in this family. But jumping on the Ferris wheel, first off, who is Melody? Melody was born in 1960. And she was born in Smyrna, Tennessee. And she had a somewhat unusual upbringing, especially for that point in time. Melody was very little, and they moved from Smyrna and moved to Tullahoma. You already heard a little bit about Tullahoma. It's actually where Melody was arrested. That's where Martha Jane lives. That's where Rusty lives. And I'll talk a little bit more about all those people. They moved to Tullahoma, and Melody and her mother, Kay, lived with Melody's grandparents. And that went on for a few years, and eventually Kay Walker met a man named Carl Walker, and they got married. And then they continued, once they were married, they bounced around a little bit. They went from Tullahoma to Nashville, Nashville to Florence, Florence back to Nashville, just kind of bouncing around this North Alabama, Central Tennessee and back down area, just moving around. Then when Melody was a teenager, they finally settled in Florence, Alabama. It's in the north. You've probably heard of Muscle Shoals. It's right there. And that's where eventually Melody started going to high school, was in that area. And so now you're like in the mid 70s, and that's actually when Melody meets Gary Farris. They met when they were 16 years old. They didn't go to the same high school. They actually met through mutual friends at the same church, and they began dating. And they dated through high school. And then in 1970, they got married. So at 1960, I think it was 79, they got married. Because I think Melody was 19 years old. Now, they get married, right out of high school, and they both go to the University of North Alabama. Melody's there for about a year, and then she drops out. Gary stays on. So Melody leaves. They're still together. They're still married. And she's working at General Electric Credit and Ace Hardware. Her, Kay Walker, her mother, Carl Walker, opened up a Ace Hardware in Florence, Alabama. And that's where Melody worked. And you'll hear a lot about Ace Hardware. She worked there for many, many, many years, helping them out with their business. So in 1980, while Gary's still in school, Chris Farris is born. Now Melody is working full-time at this point at the hardware store. Gary's full-time college student. 1983 rolls around, Scott Farris is born. Melody's still working at the hardware store. Gary's still going to school. Now you fast forward a little bit, Gary's graduated, and in 1988, they have Emily. And at this point, they've moved to Tuscaloosa to the University of Alabama. And that's where Gary goes to law school. So they're living there with the three kids while Gary's in law school. And then in 1989, Amanda Farris, who's now Amanda Bruce, she's born. Excuse me. In 1989, the following year, Gary graduates law school, and the family moves to Birmingham, where he works for Burr and Foreman, the same firm that he was at when he passed away. Now, in 1995, the law firm sent Gary to Atlanta. They were trying to expand, have a different office in Atlanta, and Gary was going to be a major part of that. And I think when he actually first got there in 95, there was there's only him and another person there. It wasn't, this huge law firm, at least here in Atlanta at that point in time. So 95, you got 4 kids, really ranging from kindergarten to Chris at that point in time being about 15 years old. Melody's a stay-at-home mom. She's going back and forth to Florence to help her parents with the hardware store and just living. And an interesting point then comes later in 1997 to Melody is Carl Walker, who she thought was her father, passed away. And while she was at the funeral, a relative came up to her and told her that, just so you know, Carl Walker's not your father. And so then that leads on her trying to figure out who her actual father is. And she does. But Carl raised her. It's just an odd thing, to kind of come out of the blue in 1997 at his funeral. Now in 2013, it's kind of the next major event. That is when Gary and Melody buy the Purcell Lane house, where you saw the photos and Mr. Fogus's opening of the house. That's when that was purchased, 2013. They move in there, and when they get there, shortly thereafter, Scott moves in to move in to the apartment that is above the barn. Now, all the kids, they also have kids and wives that are relevant to this case. And Scott was married to Jenna, and her name was Jenna Farris. Since Gary's death, they have, my understanding is they have divorced. She has changed her name. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I haven't talked to her to figure out how she pronounces it. But that is, Jenna Farris was her name. Chris also has other children by another woman, and that is Ella Farris and Addison Farris. Ella, at the time in July, the 3rd, 4th, 5th of 2018, she was over at her friend Emma's house. And Addison was over at Melody and Gary's house on the 5th, on the 4th. She came over after the lake. And I'll go through the timeline. Emily, this is Chris Payne, with the prior difficulties of the family. Chris Payne was a little bit of that. And Amanda is married to Chad. Chad's the one I was telling you about. He's the one who talked about the Ferris wheel and about how there's always something going on. And basically this family is like a soap opera. That is Chad. And Chad also has a daughter by another woman, and her name is Cameron Bruce. Cameron is who was there with Addison on the 4th. Now, let's talk about the time. So you already heard a lot about the burn pile. So Gary did start the burn pile on July 3rd. Yeah, we know that. That's a fact. Also, a couple of other interesting things happened. Addison and Cameron don't live in Georgia. All right? Those are Chris's children, or Ella and Addison do not live in Georgia. They live in Maine. On July 3rd, they flew in to Hartsville-Jackson. Chris went and picked them up, and they drove up. They came to Melody and Gary's house. Ella had already been dropped off at Emma's house, and Addison came with Chris to see Melody and Gary, and they see both Melody and Gary. Now it is, and I'll go into it more here in a moment, there is some contention about what Addison says, how the house was on the 4th, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. Now on the 4th, that is when Melody goes to Lake Lanier. You'll see, and the evidence will show that we've got a parking receipt. I actually got two things. We've got a parking receipt from Lake Lanier that shows the time that she went in. There's also a ATM slip that was in her card that we got photographs of to show that her withdrawing money, and that was on the 3rd. And we'll talk about those here more in a minute. July 4th, that is when Addison and Cameron spend the night at the house. Now, Cameron and Addison, the evidence show they have two different versions of events about how it was. Addison's more, it was kind of weird. Melody didn't want us to go outside. She made us go to bed early. Cameron will testify that they did go outside. They went and saw the horses. Nothing was weird. We actually snuck out of the house at 10 o'clock, went to the hot tub, were in the hot tub for a while, came back in, went to bed. Nothing really out of the normal. The reason, you'll also see that some evidence from Addison. There's a text message to Melody from Addison that says, hey, can we spend the night tonight on July the 3rd? And Melody responds, says, no, not tonight. And we'll have to uncover the reason for that, do the evidence. I don't want to speculate here as to what that was. But we do know that that is true. She said, no, not tonight. And she spent the night the following night after they got back from Lake Lanier. On July 5th, that is where things with this case get interesting. The remains are found on the burn pile. Now, that day started, Melody grocery shopping, the kids are there. But to sum it up, what it's really going to show is the girls wanted to ride the RTV. Melody says, go downstairs and ask your grandpa. They called him Big Daddy. Go downstairs and ask him. He's not there. I don't know where he is. So they start looking for him. Eventually, Amanda comes over because what originally the plan was is Melody, Amanda, Addison, and Cameron, they were going to have a day together. They were probably going to go eat lunch. Had talked about potentially going to get their nails done, basically just having a girls' day together. Now, when Amanda got there, they all began looking around the house. Can't find it. Gary's nowhere to be found. His car's still there. But none of this is super out of normal. Gary was a workaholic. Sometimes he would take Uber so he didn't have to drive. He essentially would be gone, for days. He may come home, he may not. We'll get into their relationship here in a minute. So no alarms were really raised at this point. Now, Scott comes over, and that's where things do get interesting. When Scott gets there, he comes in the house and immediately goes downstairs. After proclaiming to the family something along the lines of, "Where's the gun?" And he goes downstairs, in return and says, "The gun's gone." Now let's talk about this gun. I call it the magic gun because Scott Farris is the only person to ever see this gun. There's nobody else, only him. You'll hear evidence that he found it in the drawer while he was looking for a remote to help the DirecTV man. And then he found the gun. He gives a very detailed description of it. And that's it. Nothing else. And this was a few months before July when he had the DirecTV. Actually, I think it was the beginning of June. So about a month before is when Scott sees this gun. And he claims he has no idea. He's never seen this gun before. It's very strange. This gun is here. And he didn't know anything about it. But he also didn't do anything about it. Now, 6 years later, this is where Jenna Farris kind of comes in and is interesting. 6 years later, she gives an interview to the district attorney's office claiming she also saw a gun in the basement that you saw in Mr. Focus's opening, where Gary was. However, this gun looked completely different than the one Scott described and is in a completely different location than where Scott said it was. So these are the only two people that have seen this gun, and the guns they described don't even match each other, and one of them talked about it 6 years later. Now, after Gary's remains were found, he was taken down to Georgia Bureau of Investigation Forensics Department to the crime lab, and that's where an autopsy was performed. But after July 5th, 2018, 348 days go by. Melody's not arrested at this point. She's interviewed several times. I believe the evidence will show that, or I believe that the state will be playing those interviews for you, so you'll actually see Melody testifying and answering law enforcement questions. But 348 days pass. And in that 348 days, you'll see evidence they were doing audio testing. What that was is they put a ballistics dummy in the living room of the house, and they shot it with a revolver. And they had members of the Cherokee Marshal's office, as well as some sheriff's office, out there with decibel readers at different points. They were out at the barn, they were out by the road, and they were also in the house, measuring what the decibel was for firing this revolver into this ballistic dummy. And then they moved the dummy downstairs, and they shot it a bunch of times downstairs. And you're going to see all this. They're going to play all the videos of them doing the shooting and recording the sounds and all that. Diving in the lake, you're going to see they brought out the Cherokee Sheriff's Department to dive into the lake to see about where the gun was. Didn't find anything. Recording Melody's phone calls. And we'll talk more about this momentarily. Rusty, because you already heard about him, agreed with Detective Hayes that he would put some kind of app on his phone and record all their phone calls. And he did for months. You're going to hear a lot of those. Also, during that 348-day time, Scott and Chris are interviewed several times. Sometimes Scott and Chris are interviewed together, at least on one occasion, and several times Scott is interviewed alone. And then, on June 12th, over 11 months later, the crime lab issues the autopsy report, saying that Gary was the manner of death and the cause of death. Well, the cause of death was gunshot. The manner of death was homicide. And it took them 11 months to issue that report. You'll see, especially when the forensic pathologist who did the autopsy, when he testifies, they weren't waiting on anything. They knew that it was Gary. The forensic, the dental forensics had already come back. It was already Gary. But for some reason, unknown, and you'll see this happens a lot in this case. There's a lot of unknown, and we'll talk about that. No idea why it took 11 months to issue the autopsy report. No idea. But 6 days later, Melody gets arrested. And Mr. Focus is right. She wasn't in Tullahoma, Tennessee. She was up there with Martha Jane. They called her and said, hey, we got an arrest warrant for you. And she came and turned herself in. Nothing to hide. Now, John Luke and I came up with this. Actually, well, we didn't come up with it. He had gone. We were been a long day already, so he was done for the day, so he left. And he went up to the drugstore, and there was a girl in there. And the drugstore, I don't know if your office is in downtown Jasper. There's a Jasper drugstore. It's right on the corner on Main Street in Jasper. It's being sold, and they're doing renovations. And he went in there and asked them a question about something, and they didn't know. And they go, sometimes the greatest questions go unanswered. And he was like, oh, perfect. Brought me out of my slump. Now I know what I'm dealing with. So that's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time with this case, because so many things you're going to be asking yourself so many times in this case. How did this happen? How did this happen? How did this happen? And nobody knows. You can guess. Nobody's going to know. So let's talk about some evidence and questions without answers. So evidence, Melody and Gary. It is no fact, I think also, Melody and Gary affairs. It is common knowledge that they had affairs. People knew. You can even, the grandkids, the evidence will show that even they had their suspicions and pretty well knew that, there was, affairs happening. Melody did. Yeah, she was having an affair with Rusty. Gary did. He brought, when they moved here in 1995, Angela Phillips was his secretary. He brought her with him from Birmingham to Atlanta. And she was his secretary for 28 years. And she's a bit hesitant to talk about it, but I believe you'll be hearing from her about how they did have a relationship. Gary was also having a relationship, at least somewhat by text and email, with another woman who worked in his building named Joanne Ward or Joanne Hill. So, and you'll also hear Ted Wiley. Okay, they had affairs. They lived completely separate lives. In the house that Mr. Focus was showing you, in the house, Melody lived upstairs. You saw the house, and it may not be in evidence, but you saw it. That place looks like Southern Living magazine, decorated to the nines. Melody did all that. She lived upstairs. Gary lived downstairs. It was just how they'd done it. It had always been that way for years, ever since the 90s. They lived two separate lives. They would sometimes go days without even seeing each other, without speaking to each other. They didn't really talk, didn't really communicate. They did, they had kids. So they had to have some interaction together. They went and saw Emily and Chris's daughter. Her name's Olivia, when she was born. They still did Christmases together. So they did some of these family things together, but for the most part, they were just married people who did their own thing. And Melody did her thing, and Gary did his thing. And it was just what worked for them. Now, granted, with the affairs, it wasn't something that was flaunted in their faces. You try to keep some level of discretion, but it was known, and it was just how they lived. Now, Melody's interviews, I expect that you'll be seeing those interviews. And really, the only thing I want to point out of that is Melody is very blunt, very to the point. She's just who she is. She's a hard woman. And that's how she comes off, and that's how she is with law enforcement. She's very matter of fact. Here's what happened, here's what I was doing. That's just how she is. But one of the most important things that she says in her interviews, in the very last interview that she ever gave to law enforcement. Last thing she ever said to law enforcement was, I just want my family back. Forensics. There's a good bit of forensics in this case. Some is pretty interesting. I want to talk to you. I didn't want to do any of the photographs, but those blood drops that were talked about by Mr. Vogus, you're going to see that there is blood. Well, let me back that up. You will see there is a substance leading down to the basement. You're going to hear from the GBI Lana Coffee. She sprays Blue Star, which is a substance that is supposed to reflect when it's blood. Now, that's a whole nother thing. You're not going to hear anything about that being tested, of whose blood it is, even if it is blood. And you go down the stairs, they did take a swab, but they find some little drops of blood. Some of them are about as small or even smaller than 1 centimeter on the floor. Take a swab of those, send it off. That was Gary's blood. Those blood trails never lead out of the house, upstairs or downstairs. You also, the bullet. We're going to be talking a lot about the bullet, how there's no textiles found on the bullet that is found in the basement. We also have our own forensic pathologist who will be testifying about what his opinion is regarding the manner and cause of death of Gary. And we may also end up calling an additional ballistics expert, depending on how things play out with the ballistics experts are going to testify for the GBI. But that is just a wait and see. Text messages, the text messages to Terry Braswell, Mr. Fogus said that in his opening, the hope you die a gruesome death. It is a text message. We expect Terry Braswell to come in here and testify. We'll be able to cross-examine him about that text message. However, we do know one fact, excuse me, is that text message was sent 2 years before. It wasn't something that was done in July of 2018 or even June of 2008. Years before. Especially see text message from Gary and Scott about their tumultuous relationship, especially involving money. Gary sending Scott, I better have my debit card back. Also see Melody and Scott, they used to text back and forth a lot. And recorded phone calls. You're going to hear all those calls with Rusty. Now, also with finances. Now, while that house was very nice, and it was like $1 million house, and it's decorated to the nines. And yeah, we've actually got some of Gary's pay stubs, and after taxes, he was bringing home $20,000. Can't remember if it was every 2 weeks or every month. But that home, mortgage to the hill. Debt high, cash low. Gary stopped working, his family's over. And that's exactly what happened. Gary passes away, you're going to hear first thing that happens to the house, foreclosed. Didn't have enough money to pay for it. Cars gone, everything put in storage. So while they made a lot of money, they blew a lot of money. Now, Gary did have some good investments. He had a 401k with his law firm, 401k, profit sharing with the law firm, insurance, life insurance, things like that. But, you know, all those aren't accessible cash that you can use. So Gary had to keep working to fund this lifestyle. Now, questions without answers. Where was Gary shot? When Dr. Gooding testifies, she's going to have a drawing of a skeleton. And it's going to show the ribs and it's going to show he was shot somewhere here. Is it the front or in the back? Not going to be able to tell you that. Angles, don't know. No idea. Also, that's just where was he shot on the body. Where was he shot in the house? The evidence is going to show while there may be some blood and that was not tested, so we'll call it maybe blood. Upstairs in the living in Melody's portion of the house, we'll call it, and a trail leading downstairs to Gary's portion, we'll call it. You're also going to get evidence from, most likely from Amanda, how a few days before July the 3rd, 4th, 5th, that Gary, excuse me, that Gary had been bitten by one of Melody's dogs on the ankle and was bleeding as he walked down the stairs down to his room so that he could stop the bleeding in his ankle. And that's where the blood came from. But where was he shot? No idea. How was he put on the burn pile? You're not going to hear about that either. You're going to see photographs of tractors. You're going to see photographs of RTVs. Probably of horses too. But you're not going to hear anything about Gary being moved on one of those vehicles. You will hear, though, that there was one drop of blood that was Gary's on the step getting up into the tractor. There's nothing in like the bucket. One drop of blood on the tractor. Where is the gun? Don't know that either. Now, you're going to see photographs of guns. There were guns on the property. There was no .38 Fang on the property. I think there was an old .32 caliber that was found on the property, but we know that wasn't the gun in question. But what you will find is that Scott has quite a bit of .38 caliber ammunition in the barn, and in fact, he's got it in his bedside table. But yet he claims, and when he testifies, I assume he will be claiming the same thing, that he does not own a .38 caliber pistol. He will claim that he owned a .357 Magnum at one point, but that gun had been stolen years ago, and he didn't have anything that would shoot a .38. Yet he has at least one full box of .38 special ammunition and a loose several other various brands of .38 special in his nightstand. And you'll see all those. You'll see the photographs of those. But where is the gun? No idea. Where are the bullets? They're in Scott's house. Scott's behavior. From the very beginning, like I told you, from the very beginning, Scott is saying, Melody, Melody, Melody. I thought she would do something. Leading law enforcement down this trail. And you're going to see all that. It's going to be very evident of what his intentions are regarding his mother. He does it in his interviews, and he's going to do it on the stand here too. I would suspect that's exactly what he's going to do. But the most important thing is just in that few minutes of getting there, he's already talking about guns being missing that he's the only person that has seen. Then he goes out looking. You're also most likely going to be seeing, there's a trail camera that was, if the burn pile was where I'm standing, it was kind of, don't exactly know how far, but down closer to the lake. Kind of pointing at they had a deer feeder down there to take pictures of the animals. And you're going to see that coming up to that camera, for some reason, and I don't think we'll ever get a straight answer, we don't know why those photographs got deleted. Or actually, who actually deleted them. Now, we know because they were recovered. So we know what photographs were on them, but we don't know of who deleted them. Now, you heard the judge talking about, before you took your oath, about what reasonable doubt was. And he said that reasonable doubt was a doubt of a fair minded and impartial juror honestly seeking the truth. Then he also went on for a little bit and talked about if your minds are unwavering, unsettled, or unsatisfied, that is a doubt to the law. And with that, you should acquit the defendant. So essentially, when you're looking at this case, whenever we had done, when you're evaluating this case and you're evaluating all the evidence, you got to say, has the state proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, what a reasonable doubt is that you have a doubt that you can put a reason to, and it's reasonable. It is a reasonable doubt. Now, that is a high burden for the state. Now, I'll go over this and close. I know it's like how it shows that even if the state can get to reasonable doubt, no, that's still an acquittal. That's still not guilty, because they have to go beyond reasonable doubt. And remember, that is just a doubt for which you can put a reason. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you have, like in this case, when you have questions that go unanswered, when we're talking about unanswered questions of how did we get to the burn pile? Where's the gun? Where's the bullets? Where are these simple things that we should be able to find? And why, when we find them, they're in a place that, well, we don't like where that's going. Law enforcement saw the bullets over in the barn. Yeah, here we are with Melody charged with malice murder, felony murder, ag assault. Nobody heard anything. You're not going to hear anything about this case that Melody heard, or that anybody heard Melody shoot him, or that she admitted to somebody that she shot him. You did hear from, and you'll hear from him again, from Mr. Bart, from Rusty, that he said, Melody said he's on the burn pile. And what Mr. Barton changed, and he'll be under direct and cross-examination in this case, is what he changed. He didn't change what she said. He changed when she said it. So he said, yes, Melody said they found him on the burn pile, not on the 4th. It was on either the 5th or the 6th when she was talking to him saying, hey, they found Gary dead on the burn pile. Rusty didn't change what he said. He told him when he said it, he got it wrong, and he corrected himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you have unanswered questions in a case like this, really the only answer is not guilty. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fogus, you got witnesses ready?
The first one is by the previous stipulation.
All right, go ahead. Y'all can decide whether y'all want the mobile lectern to stay there or whether y'all want to get rid of it. The last trial, everybody used both of them. So.
It's good, Joseph. We keep it. The first exhibit is going to be, it's labeled 911-1 for 911 call. And it is July 5th, 2018 at 12:47 p.m. July 5th, 2018 at 12:47 p.m. It's about 2 minutes and 21 seconds, and it's Scott Farris. And Judge, I tune that to evidence this time by stipulation. All right. May I publish it? It's 911 and then 1 in parenthetical.
Sure would be offered about you. I'm not, I'm just kidding. You go ahead. Okay.
Y'all agree to the foundation.
Two one five five or so, Blaine. My father has come up missing, and we just searched the property. It's a small farm, and I just found something near the farm that doesn't. He was burning brush. Now there's stuff in the fire that it could be him. I don't know.
Okay. All right, sir. What's Purcell Lane run off of?
It's right off of Birmingham Road.
You said 2155 Purcell Lane, that's correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is your name?
Scott Farris, Farris.
callback number for you, Scott?
404-861-2667.
How old is you said your father?
Yes, sir.
How old is
He just turned on the 68. Yeah.
68, okay.
Now I'm calling you to say that we've been walking around looking for him, and I went where the fire's still smoldering, and I'm ex-military. I was deployed to Iraq. I've seen what burned up bodies look like, and this looks like a body.
Okay. All right, sir. I've got him on the way out there for you. I'm going to send the police and the fire department out there. Just try and lead everything that you can, the way you found it down there, and we've got him on the way out there for you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else I can do for you, sir?
No, that'll be it.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Say, oh, Sarah Love. Sarah Love. We're doing that system, so it's just 911 one. It will go into like we go into the phone, we'll do that kind of thing. Stand up and stretch. Yeah, see right up there, Captain. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear affirm the evidence about the this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Go ahead, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. State your full name for the record.
Sarah Jane Love.
And where do you work and what do you do?
I'm a firefighter paramedic with Cherokee County Fire and Emergency Services.
What's your rank there?
Captain.
Tell the jury how long you've been doing what you do.
Well, I've been a paramedic for 28 years and I've been with the fire department for almost 22.
And what is I know there's paramedics, EMTs, and firefighters. What are they all and how are they different?
So there's an EMTI, which is like a basic, the lowest level you can work on an ambulance, and then an advanced, and then a paramedic.
And do you have a certain area that you work in the county, or is it just, how does that work?
You're typically assigned to a station.
You ever had to
a
testify
zone.
before at a trial?
I'm sorry?
You ever had to testify before at a trial?
Yes.
And you know why you're here today?
Yes.
I want to turn your attention now back to July 5th of 2018. It was a Thursday. I think y'all responded around right around 12:59 p.m. to the residents in this case. Is that right?
I don't have the date and times in front of me, but yes, we did
Okay.
respond.
Do you remember, was it midday, afternoon?
Afternoon, I believe.
Okay. If I told you it was around 1 o'clock, any reason to disagree with me on that?
No.
All right. And do you remember where you went to, where the property was?
Yeah, it was in the area of Freehome or Alpharetta.
2155 Purcell Lane in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yes,
Is that the residence?
yes. Okay,
And this was the Farris house, is that right?
I believe so, sir.
And was the house where you went and where all this occurred, what county was that in?
Cherokee County.
Do you remember what you got called out for?
We got called out for a person fell into a fire.
Just a person falling into a fire?
Initially, yes, sir.
Now, as you were heading out there, tell the jury just kind of What did you pack up? What did you take? And what did you expect to see?
Well, we responded with the fire truck and the ambulance. I was on the ambulance that day. We were originally dispatched to a person falling in the fire, and then it became a person down call, which means that they need resuscitation.
Means what? I'm sorry. I didn't catch that.
They need to be resuscitated. They don't have a pulse or not breathing.
As you were going there and going to the scene, what did you think you were going to find?
We were going to find a patient that needed to be resuscitated.
Like a person,
Yes.
maybe just falling out or something?
Yeah, we, just from the information, he fell in the fire.
When you got there, do you remember seeing anybody from the family, a son or not?
Yes, somebody met us at the end of the driveway. The driveway was pretty long, so the guys on the fire truck were getting onto the ambulance with us to ride in. And there was a gentleman there at the end of the driveway, so that he would show us where the body was at.
Were y'all there first before law enforcement, the sheriff's department?
I believe so, but they wasn't far behind us.
And how long did it take you to get there from the call? The call came out about 12:47. Did it take you very long?
I don't believe so. I don't have my reports. I don't know exactly how long.
Was it a short drive?
Fairly short, yeah.
And when you arrived, just kind of tell the jury what you remember seeing and what was going on.
So initially we stopped at the driveway, picked up the, what we found out later was the gentleman's son. He was telling us that he had been in Afghanistan and he had seen burned bodies before and he knew what they looked like. And I was trying to get information about if he was, breathing, if he was alert at the time, or, more information about the patient. And he just kept saying that over and over. And then when we got to the house, he rode in the back of the ambulance. When we got to the house, he walked us around to the back side of the house, to a large burn area.
When you first met with, who's going to be Scott, we believe, the son,
Yeah.
When you first met with him, when you were talking to him, were you trying to ask him questions to see if he would answer them?
I was just trying to find out what kind of condition at the time we assumed a patient was going to be in. If we were going to be working a cardiac arrest or just treating a burn patient, or what we were going to find when we got around to the back.
Was that because you thought there was going to be a human being there?
Mm-hmm.
And when you were asking him questions, was it his state of mind? Was he telling you stuff? Was he able to tell you things?
He just kept saying over and over that he knew what a burned body looked like. And I was asking more like, was he breathing and was he conscious? And he just kept saying he knew what a burned body looked like.
You're not supposed to witness.
Go ahead. I don't have to ask.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, we've marked exhibits a little differently in this case. Instead of 1 through whatever it is, we've met and marked them by numbers. Go ahead and take those if you have a look at those. You had an opportunity to look at photographs before trial, I believe, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and look at those and see if those. Now, it's going to be labeled aerial, as in aerial photographs. Go ahead and look at 1 through 14.
Okay.
Are those photographs aerial 1 through 14? Do they fairly accurately represent the area that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Judge, this time I tender to evidence aerial 1 through aerial 14. Judge, after a meeting, I just publish them without asking permission. That's fine. Thank you.
Anything we can do.
you see on your screen there, this is aerial 1. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
By looking at the screen, this is just showing from the courthouse to the scene. Can you tell the jury about how long, how many miles it is, approximately normal drive, how much time?
From the courthouse, 34 minutes and 16 miles.
About 34 minutes or 16 and a half miles, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Purcell Lane, what area of the county is that in, Cherokee County?
That'd be the northeastern corner.
And what is that, what type of homes and things are out there? Nice
Uh,
homes,
Yes, fairly large homes.
expensive area,
Yes,
affluent
sir.
area, I guess is what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
And where were you coming from when you went there?
So where it says Freehome on the map and Highway 20, our station is about very close to Highway 20 at that where you would have turned off of Highway 20. Our station's right there.
This is aerial 2. This is showing coming down the road, Purcell Lane, as you come down Purcell. And was the driveway where you picked up Scott, was that at the kind of right there where Purcell Lane is and the driveway meets?
Yes, sir.
So do you remember the long driveway going up?
Yes.
So did you meet Scott down here or up in the driveway? Where was it?
At Purcell Lane, the fire engine's too big to get down the driveway. So the ambulance stopped there and the crew from the fire truck jumped on the back of the ambulance.
So everybody hopped in the ambulance and went up the
Yeah.
driveway?
Yeah.
Aerial 3, this is just an overhead Google map showing the property is. How would you describe this property if you could say, this is the type of property, this is what it was like?
It's a very large, nice property. Couldn't really see the house at all from the road, from the trees. It's a very large property.
We've taken some aerials about a year later, some drone photographs that you've been able to review. And this is aerial 4, so this is a snippet, if you would, from an aerial. Does this kind of look like the area that you went to on July 5th of 2018?
Yes, sir. I was more or less looking in the back, talking to the son. So I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to the driveway, but yes, sir, that is the.
As we look at aerial 4, this photograph on the left of the screen is this big long driveway. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
As aerial 5, as you move up the driveway, is it correct to say that there's a road or driveway that goes to the right to the barn, but y'all went straight up to the house?
Correct, sir.
And then aerial 6, is this an aerial showing the pond?
Yes, sir.
Is this the house behind the trees here?
It appears to be. Yes, sir.
How about that? Aerial
Yes, sir.
7?
Yes, sir. That is the house.
Aerial 8, just another overview. Now, when you parked, and again, this is about a year later, but as you walk, did y'all walk around as where my mouse is on this item that's here, this white item? Did y'all go around this side, this left side, if you were facing the house?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
And then as you came around, did you come over to the back side where the burn pile was?
Yes, sir. We did.
Tell the jury, when you arrived expecting to see a person, when did things change for you? What did you see and what changed it?
As we're walking up to the burn pit, you could see some long bones. I saw a foot and the skull.
And when you saw that, what in your mind was going on? What were you saying to yourself?
Just trying to make sense of it. It's not something you would typically see. So I was like trying to, like the skull, I thought maybe it was a rock. So I kind of moved it a little bit and put it back the way I found it. And the foot, is probably what stands out the most is the foot.
What equipment did you have with you to expect to find a person?
So the guys from the engine grabbed the bed and the equipment, the cardiac monitor, the jump bag, and they were coming behind me, and me and the son were walking, a little bit ahead of them.
When you got there, what was found and what happened?
Well, when I saw the bones, I advised dispatch that it wasn't a person down. It was a signal 48, which means a deceased person. and then to have the coroner en route.
Did anybody touch the bones or do anything with it?
Only like I said, sir, the top of the skull looked like it may have been a rock, so I kind of lifted it a little bit and then put it back where it was when I realized it was definitely the skull.
So things changed from a person needing help to a body, basically?
Correct.
Remains? Is that
Yes, sir.
fair? Did law enforcement, were they quickly on the scene at that point? Did they come up?
Yeah, I remember them being right behind us.
I know you've probably seen a lot of things in your career, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
But did this shock you?
Yes, sir.
That states aerial 11 just showing this is a photograph showing the house in relation to the pond.
Yes, sir.
Aerial 12 going back over the pond to the arena, the sand pit. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
13 just marching back down the driveway, leaving.
Yes, sir.
And then 14 just going back to the road.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've had an opportunity to look at law enforcement was able to do some drone videos about a year later in June of 2019. Did you have an opportunity to look at those drone videos?
I did.
Judge, at this time, and were those videos fair and accurate as you know the property to be when you saw it?
Yes, sir.
I tend to evidence now aerial 15, aerial 16, and aerial 17, which are 3 drone videos done by the sheriff's office about a year later.
All right, any objections?
No objection.
All right, they're admitted.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to let this one play. It's about 2 minutes and 10 seconds long. Just maybe dim the lights or it's not.
Dim the lights, no better. Flip the switch, right? Flip the switch down.
We play now aerial 16, which is about 7 minutes and 13 seconds long. And Captain Love, while that's going on, you went around this as the drone is going. This left side is kind of how y'all approach the burn piles.
Yes, sir.
Captain Bob, I know this is about a year later, but is that area of the burn pile?
Yes, sir.
Captain Love, on State's Exhibit Aerial 16, roughly right at 7 minutes, is this a view showing from the burn pile to the house?
Yes, sir.
Next is State's Exhibit Aerial 17, which is 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Another drone video. And Captain on State's exhibit aerial 17, roughly at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, is it showing 2 doors on that side of the house on the basement level?
Yes, sir.
After you realized what you were dealing with, did you turn the scene over to law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything?
Yes, Your Honor.
Like, you need a replaying of the video?
No, Your Honor.
Flip them back up, please.
Good afternoon, Captain Love. My name is John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris in this matter. And it is Captain, correct?
Correct.
So on that day, you responded with who?
Me and my partner, Kenny Holland, were on the ambulance. On the fire truck was Jacob Kinney and Megan Hamilton.
Okay. So you got off of the ambulance,
Yes,
and you get, again, the fire truck could not make it up the driveway.
correct.
Why was that?
Because the weight of the fire truck, we don't typically drive the fire truck on driveways. If it's a long driveway, they'll either have to walk or they'll jump in the back of the ambulance with us. And on that call, they jumped in the back of the ambulance.
So you get out, you've got your pack, you don't really know what you have at the time, as you testified to earlier, but you walked up the driveway and you encountered, who did you encounter?
So at the end of the driveway, when we stopped and the crew from the fire truck was getting on, there was a gentleman at the end of the driveway telling us that he could show us where at the time we thought a patient was.
Okay. Now, you stated earlier that he kept saying to you he knew what a burned body looked like.
Correct.
And that's something that's resonated in your memory 6.5 years later.
Yes, sir.
All right. That was Scott Farris, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. What was his demeanor?
He was, I guess the best word is just panicked.
Okay. Do you remember anything else? Did he say anything else to you about where the location of this was?
That he would show us. He said it was a pretty good walk. He would show us where it was.
Now, were there any other family members close by as this was happening?
I did not see anyone else.
Did you speak to any of the other family members on the property?
No, sir.
Did he mention to you or to anybody that worked with you that day, did he ever bring up anything about a missing gun?
No, sir.
All right. But how many times do you think he said he knew what a burned body looked like?
Probably 2-3 times when I was asking questions when we were still in the back of the ambulance.
Do you remember anything else he said?
I don't remember when he said it, but he said his dad had been missing for a couple of days and they'd been looking for him, but that wasn't unusual for him to be missing, I guess.
He said that to you?
Yes.
And that's when he walked you back there himself?
Yes.
And that was just as we saw in the video, back down the house, from behind the house. What would you say the grade on that piece of property was?
It was a little bit of an incline, but not too steep.
All right. And how far behind? I mean, because videos and pictures certainly don't do justice necessarily to being there in person. How far behind the house would you say that burn pile was?
I couldn't tell you. Because, I mean, at the time, I'm not thinking about how far I'm walking. I'm just like walking, trying to get some information and thinking about what we're going to do.
So generally speaking, so the images that we saw today were taken roughly a year later. You didn't take those pictures, correct?
Correct.
Right. But Compare and contrast the state of the burn pile that day, July the 5th, 2018.
Just in reference to my report, I estimated it was probably about a 6 foot in diameter. I don't remember, I think 3 feet maybe high.
Was it still smoking? Could you tell? Was it hot?
I don't remember seeing any smoke. And we didn't bring our thermometer down there to check because we were on a EMS call. And we were thinking, get the patient, go to the hospital.
And you mentioned that, now, did you have any gloves or anything like that on?
Yeah, we had medical exam gloves on.
So I imagine that you wouldn't have thought it was a very hot fire if you would reach down and touch it.
No, sir, it wasn't.
Right. When you touched what was a remain, was it hot?
I don't remember it being hot, not like to burn me. It was warm outside, so I mean, it wasn't like it was on fire currently or enough to burn me, but it was, I guess, ambient temperature.
There'll be a number of expert witnesses. I expect that the state is going to. I keep thinking there's a map up there, but there's not. There's a number of expert witnesses that I believe the state's going to call, kind of talking about how they have mapped out the burn pit, the burn pile, where certain things were found within the burn pile. But you stated that you picked up what I believe you believe to be the skull of Mr. Farris.
I didn't know who, but yes, it appeared to be a skull.
But you picked it up, yes?
I didn't pick it up.
Okay.
I lifted like the corner and let it lay back down to where it was.
Immediately laid it back down.
Yeah, I did not move it.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't pick it up to move it.
You didn't pick it up and hold it in your hand?
No, sir.
You just
I just
rolled
made
it
sure
and
it
put
was.
it back.
I just made sure it was like not a rock, and there was,
And that would have been when you made the signal 48?
Yes, sir.
Was Scott Farris standing there when you were doing that?
I assume so. I mean, he walked us back there, and he was still back there when we were leaving. I don't think he left.
Any other family members around?
I do not remember any other family members.
Did you ever remember speaking with my client, Melody Farris?
No, sir.
And did you see her even?
I did not.
When you walk down there, and I believe this is important, so I take your time to answer this question. Because all of Cherokee County responded following you after your signal 48. Did you ever notice any tractor marks near the fire?
I did not notice, sir.
All right. Did you notice any RTV tire treads, like a tire tread, a car tread, any kind of a tire?
I did not notice.
All right. How about, could you see where horse hoof marks would be somewhere around the fire? Could you see any of that?
I didn't notice anything like that.
All right. Any tools or implements for the fire?
I didn't notice. I wasn't looking for stuff like that either.
Yes, ma'am.
But I did not notice.
Okay. Anything else you would remember about that day?
No, sir.
How long did you leave after the signal 48?
Pretty quickly after I called and told them that it was a signal 48 and law enforcement was there, we turned the scene over quickly as possible, especially for the ambulance to get back in service for, the next emergency call. So we left pretty quickly.
I may have one brief second, Your Honor. That's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can sit down. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, you may as well call.
All right. That's fine. All right, call your next witness.
This is time to take off Robert Raleigh. Robert Raleigh.
Y'all stretch.
Just before we allow, we'd like to finish with this witness study. We don't have any more after this.
How much you got? I want to be.
This won't be very long.
You got another one you could call?
Next one.
Next is gonna be long. Are they here? Do the preliminary stuff?
Sir, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the evidence you about present in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Have a seat, state your name for the record, and tell us where you work and what do you do?
Ben Riley, over at Cherokee County Sheriff's Department, UPD, been there 11 and a half years.
And what do you do at the Sheriff's Department?
Investigate crimes, car crashes, supervise, and road patrol.
I want to turn your attention now to Thursday, July 5th, 2018, probably right around 1 p.m. Did you respond to 2155 Purcell Lane in Alpharetta, Cherokee County, Georgia?
I did.
Tell the jury what you responded for.
I responded for a person down. Essentially, I guess the son of the mother called and said he'd been to Iraq, seen a person burning before. He knows what it looks like, and I responded as the supervisor.
Where'd you come from?
That precinct.
How long did it take you to get there?
It took me quite a while.
And when you respond, what do you remember seeing there?
There was some family outside, and there was another deputy at the front porch.
You got your cell phone with you?
I do.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Do me a favor, the judge allows. Can you Google what day of the week is July 5th, 2018?
Judge, you okay?
I've got a calendar. This is Perkins County. No objection. Judge, I'll tender to evidence now State's Exhibit Raleigh 1, which is a calendar. Did you beat me?
Yes. There you go.
All right. So looking at State's Exhibit Raleigh 1 for your name and your one exhibit there, number 1. July 2018, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you respond July 5th, which is a Thursday?
Yes, sir.
About 1 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
And do you have an opportunity to review State's Exhibit Raleigh 2, which is just a portion of your video from your patrol vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair and accurate and describe you pulling up the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Judge, at this time I'm tendering to evidence State's Exhibit Raleigh 2, which is a clip from his patrol vehicle video.
Okay.
Tendering to evidence this time.
Go ahead.
This you?
Yes, sir.
Left of the screen, you'll see yourself walking up there.
Yes, sir.
I have no idea. It looks like one of ours. You go around to the left of the house. Yes, sir. Thank you.
When you arrived, where did you go?
I went to the left side of the house
And where'd you end up?
and inside the house.
Did you go in the, who did you see in the house? Did you see Melody Farris, the defendant in the house?
Yes, sir.
Now let the record reflect, is this the defendant that you saw in the house?
You know, I believe so.
Okay. If I
It's
tell you
6
that-
years ago. Yes, sir.
All right. She looked like the person that you saw.
Yes, sir.
When you went in, where was she at?
She was on the outside, and then she came on inside.
Did you clear the house?
I did.
Tell the jury what clearing the house is.
So clearing the house is anytime you go on scene, you need to make sure that nothing else is inside the house, and that's just standard operating procedure. What we do.
When you walked in, did the defendant go and get anything from the house?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
She asked if she could enter the house. She forgot to get 2 rings that were inside her drawer, and I allowed her to do so. And we went inside the house. She went into a junk drawer and pulled out 2 rings and put them on her ring finger.
Where was this in the house? Do you remember?
It was on inside the kitchen.
Kitchen area.
Yes, sir.
And then after that, what happened?
And then she left. She went back outside.
At any point while you were out there, were you, I guess, tasked with doing security or making sure nothing was getting moved, things like that?
Yes, sir.
And did you ever smell anything?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury what you smelled.
Just like cleaning solution, like bleach. It was a very faint odor.
Remember anything about a candle?
Yes. The candle was reflected in my report. I can't remember exactly the candle. It was 6 years ago.
But there was a candle burning in the house?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, Mr. Weaver.
Are you corporal?
Yes, sir.
Corporal, I'm John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris. So what you just summed up, was that, how long were you there that day?
I was there for a while. I mean, if it happened at 1 o'clock, I wasn't relieved until about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
All right, so you were there 4 or 5 hours.
Sure.
All right. And you were the first one to respond for Cherokee County Sheriff's Office?
Incorrect.
Okay. Who was?
I believe it was be on CAD, but I know that I relieved Deputy Moss at the time.
All right. So there had already been a number of people there by the time you got there.
Sure.
All right. And you walk in, were you the first person to talk to Miss Farris that you know of?
I don't know.
Had anybody else, so you walked in the house immediately once you got there?
I don't remember.
All right. And you walked in the house and you immediately smelled, what did you say you smelled?
The odor like a cleaning solution, like bleach.
All right. Did you walk into a laundry room? Did you notice there was a laundry room close by when you walked in the house?
I don't remember.
Okay, you don't remember. And a candle, what did you say you smelled a candle burning?
I believe there was it reflected in my report that there was a candle. I don't recall.
Because you don't recall the candle.
Correct.
Then why would you write in a report that this candle was important to you, but you don't remember what it was?
Because that's 6 years ago.
Okay. Is it unusual for people to have a candle burning in their house?
Sure. Is it unusual?
Yes. Is it unusual? Or is it usual?
Yeah.
It's normal.
Correct.
So why was that unusual to you?
I don't know.
Okay. And is it unusual for people to clean their houses?
Yeah, that's standard.
It's standard. And when you walk into a house, some of them smell clean, correct?
Sure.
All right. And would this have been any more different than if you walked into anybody's clean house? Yours, for example.
No.
Go ahead, Judge. Okay, hold on. One more. All right, so you cleared this house, yes?
Correct.
All right. And was anybody else with you?
I believe Deputy Moss.
Okay. And when you cleared this house, did you notice anything else out of place?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you notice any blood splatter?
No, sir.
Did you notice any droplets of blood?
No, sir.
Did you notice a bullet surreptitiously placed in the floor in the basement?
No, sir.
Okay. Nothing else. You just noticed maybe the smell of, you say bleach, maybe.
Yeah, cleaning solution, bleach.
And a candle.
Yes, sir.
But you don't remember what the candle smelled like.
No.
Okay. Anything else? There.
All right, thank you, Hunter. Debbie, I want to follow up on this candle. I think you were in the kitchen, is that right?
Correct.
And you say it's been 6 years?
Yes.
Don't remember everything?
Don't.
Did you write a report?
Yes, sir.
Are you taught to write something significant or important to put in your report?
Absolutely.
Would it refresh your memory, your recollection, be able to look at your report and see what you said or wrote down about the candle?
Yes.
Judge, may I approach? With all this technology now, I have the reports on my laptop. So what I want you to do is take my laptop, just hold it to yourself. Is that your report?
Yes, sir.
Do me a favor, go ahead and just read it to yourself. Don't read it out loud. Go to the section at the bottom there where it talks about the candle. All right, now being in the kitchen, there was a door. Where was the candle at?
I don't remember it was a big house. I don't remember exactly where the candle was.
Okay, you remember what room it is?
No, sir.
What do you now recall what you wrote in your report where the candle was?
Yeah, the candle was being lit in front of the basement door.
Approach on. Basement door.
Yes, sir.
Nothing further.
Did you take any photos of where this candle was?
No, sir.
Are you aware of any being taken of this candle?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you ever look in the dining room where the candle was?
Again, I couldn't even tell you where the dining room was.
Right. And you couldn't tell me where the laundry room was either.
Correct.
That's all, Judge.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can step down.
Thanks, sir.
All right,
Just no be approached. Just kidding.
all right. Off getting behind, but the attorneys have said that the next witness is going to be lengthy, and they don't want to start for 30 minutes and then break for the evening and then start back in the morning. So we're going to recess today. Y'all report back in the morning at, I want y'all here at 8:45 in the jury room. So that means y'all need to get here before that downstairs. There'll be someone, like I said, at your parking spaces. Does anyone know where are they under the deck? Does anyone have any idea? Drive around till you see someone who will direct you where you're supposed to go, or you see cones. There'll be some orange cones when you come in. I believe they're going to be under the parking deck. So when you pull in straight from the street entrance, go under the parking deck, and I think it'll either be under the parking deck or that first row in front of the parking deck. But they're probably going to put them under the deck in case we have weather, and that way y'all are not in the rain. So look for the orange cones or tape blocking off. There should be someone there directing you where to go. That way you don't have to worry about having a place for y'all to park when we have hundreds of people here throughout the trial. It's critically important, everything I've told you so far about not talking to anyone about the case, looking up anything about the case, the witnesses, the parties, reviewing anything about the trial. There is multiple sources of what y'all have already observed on the internets right now. Don't watch any of it. If someone brings it to your attention, ignore it. If it pops up in your feed, ignore it. All those things. And again, if anything significant happens, let us know and we'll address that in the morning. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about what y'all are supposed to do between now and tomorrow? If there are any issues that come up overnight, if someone gets sick, something like that, call the jury phone number, leave a message. They'll check the phone first thing when or send an email to them, whatever they want you to do. But check in with that, and they will call you in the first thing in the morning and give you all direction on what to do. And we will bring you in and accommodate whatever we can, how best we can. All right, anything else we need to take up before I dismiss the jurors? All right. I told the bailiff to instruct y'all if y'all want to bring in some snacks or drinks or things like that. Y'all can use bailiff can put them in my fridge. Anything else? All right, and we'll recess for the day. See y'all in the morning. don't go anywhere yet. All right, I think we had, I think we had talked, Mr. Weaver, Mr. Ray, that y'all had talked to your client about sidebars.
We probably need to put it on.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's put that on the record. So, I think we talked about it, Ms. Farris, but I don't think we specifically went on the record with it. We just had a short sidebar. As I indicated to the jury, we're not gonna do anything substantive over there. We huddled up over there and the state said our next witness is gonna be lengthy and we would rather call them tomorrow instead of going forward today. I asked your attorneys and they said, that's fine with us. That is most likely going to be the nature of anything that we talk about on the side. You have the right to be present for anything in regard to your trial. And there are a couple of Supreme Court decisions that say that a bench conference is in fact a critical stage and part of the trial. And you have the right to be present. But as a practical matter, sending the jury out to the jury room while we do something like that can be counterproductive and disruptive. So do you agree to waive your presence for those type bench conferences? You need to say yes on the record. All right. She indicates that's okay. As I said, I will do my best. If anything substantive comes up, I will stop it and we will send the jury out and take it up outside their presence. And if there's anything else that we need to take up, we will bring it and give you an opportunity to address it during the next break. But I plan on it just being logistical things like that. All right. Anything else we need to take up before we break for the day?
What do you think about schedule-wise tomorrow? Go long until?
I'd like to go at least till 5. Shoot for 5:30 every day,
Okay.
and
Break at noon for lunch, or?
we'll break 12:30 and break for an hour and 15 minutes tomorrow. I'm not bringing in food tomorrow, but we may do that on Wednesday.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Anything else?
Hang on.
All right. We'll be in recess. Thank y'all.
And we did, excuse me.
Yes. And y'all have your conference room, but y'all can leave whatever you want in here or in your remote office in the building.